Let me start recording. I'll start recording. Okay. All right. You ready? Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Added Time FPL, our weekly. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Added Time FPL, our weekly Fantasy Premier League football podcast, the number one Fantasy Premier League football podcast with two South Africans, one in Canada and one in the United Kingdom. We're doing a bit of a different video today. We're doing a bit of a game week review to see how it does. If it does well, great. Let us know in the comments down below. Like the video. If it doesn't, well, then we just never do it again. But Mike, welcome back. We're on international break, so let's make a video of what happened this past weekend.
Yeah, and then just by the way, we're going to talk about FPL next week because we don't want to talk. Some of us don't want to talk about FPL. Others are celebrating being in the top echelons of FPL. 25th in South Africa, 147th Chelsea overall, and 1,573rd.
Out of 10.5 million players. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to take anything away from that, it's that you should follow this podcast.
And listen to Nate because he knows what he's talking about.
Well,
but we're here to talk.
It's nice because you give me ideas and then it's back and forth.
I just don't listen to you, and I should. So I'm going to learn and everybody else is going to learn and no one can beat you. So we'll just have to join you. Yeah, but let's go ahead and talk about what this game week looked like just in terms of the fixtures. Would you want to start at the beginning of the fixtures?
For those of you that caught on, I'm still wearing a Chelsea t-shirt. All right. So let's start with Chelsea's fixture. Because despite 1-1, and Mike, I don't know if you're a little bit annoyed. I'm obviously annoyed. I wish we won, but I still think we played well, which is why I'm still wearing a Chelsea shirt.
Chelsea at home versus Forest, 1-1. Goals from Wood and goals from Madueke. It was a tight game, a defensive masterclass from below block from Forest, and Chelsea doing a lot better to break them down this time instead of what it's been for the last couple of years.
To be fair, it should have been 2-1. Nkunku should have finished that chance. Mudryk did well to get into that space, which I feel like Maresca's cooking with Mudryk being a super sub because it kind of worked. So we'll see how that translates.
I think Cole Palmer had better chances. I think Cole Palmer
should have finished
better chances, and I think he'll regret that. But I think Chelsea can hold their head high because we still finish above Aston Villa with their draw on equal points, the better goal difference. So we're looking good. Just some thoughts on that game quickly. Do you think Nkunku should have started that game?
Started. It's always going to be tough because, I mean, you want to keep Jackson's momentum going and you don't want to really bench him and then he's like, oh, well, and then he loses confidence. So I get why Maresca didn't start him. But I personally think he should have. He had something to show for it in Conference League, and Jackson didn't last week. So for me, you give him the chance. Like, why not? If anything, I think he should have come on way earlier than the 75th minute. So, yeah.
Jackson works harder, but Nkunku's way more clinical. Now, what about Madueke, though? 7 shots, 2 on target, a deserved goal. How did he look for the entirety of the game?
That was Wolves for Madueke. He was good. The thing is, people will say, oh, he's selfish. In that game, I think every shot that he took was justified. I think he had to take those shots that he did, which is interesting for me because if he keeps going like this, he's going to be a very good asset for FPL. If you can't afford Palmer and you want to maybe go Jackson Madueke or Jackson Sancho, that's still there because Chelsea's attack, I think we said it last week this time, they had like 23 goal involvements in the last 6 games before they played in the week. So
it's goals and assists, combined.
That's crazy. So yeah, I mean they're playing well. They are playing well, definitely. And Madueke also. Yeah.
What did you think of Ward-Prowse grabbing the ball?
Bro,
that was so hilarious.
Because we were watching the game together. Like we sunk our videos. And I lost it, bro. I lost it. I'm like, I told Mikal, he's scoring a try. He's playing rugby, this guy. Like, I've never seen anything like that in my life. To me, that's a straight red card, personally. Because, I mean, come on. Jackson was through. There was no one there. Tactical. It was a second yellow, so I get it. But, I mean...
The ref must have known that Jackson was never going to score because it's Jackson and he needs like 3 shots. But
you know what?
It all
went downhill. It was hilarious, but it went downhill from there for us because what happens when you're down to 10 men? You just defend with everyone. So that's why we couldn't break.
Yeah, it actually closed the spaces up for us, so it actually didn't help us. You're right. Though they did have some free kick set pieces that Ward-Prowse couldn't
Could
take
have,
late on in the
yeah, there
game.
could have been a late-headed set-piece goal. There could have been a bang in the net goal of the season type of goal of the month vibes from him. So they did
End
lose
of the
that.
end of the game, I thought Chelsea were lucky to leave with a point because they nearly scored, and the only reason
Sancho
they didn't.
saved people that brought in Sancho. Congratulations. We didn't back him, but you guys did, and for not keeping a clean sheet, he ended up with 4 points because he was up there with bonus points and saves. So fair play. Might be something to consider. I know with Jordan Pickford, he was an FPL asset because of the amount of saves that he was doing.
And Chelsea's defense is rubbish.
So maybe Sanchez is in the same boat as that budget player as an alternative.
Yeah, Salas also made some saves as well. So I
It
think
was the goalkeeping masterclass that game. Seriously, like both keepers did really well.
that one save Sanchez made was really cat-like reflexes, so it was really good. And I'm keeping an eye on some players from Nottingham Forest with some careers moving forward. Wood seems like a really strong striker, perfect for that type of team. But Hudson tried really hard to do some damage at Stamford Bridge. He just couldn't pull it off. His old club.
Yeah. Pretty sure he wanted to celebrate in front of the crowd. But
The worst part of that match was the yellow bands to Fofana and Cucurella.
Yeah.
How do you think it's going to affect us against Liverpool?
It's going to be difficult. Fofana, not so much. I don't really care. I'm glad to a point because that forces Maresca to start Tosin, who we both think is a better centre back at the moment. However, does Viega have what it takes to step into that left back role? That's probably going to be him or Colwell. I'll most likely see Colwell moving out, and then Disassi, and I don't want to see it happen, but it's going to be that, and it's going to hurt Chelsea next year.
James is slated to be back by after the international break. I don't think it's wise to
get injured.
Yes, I know. I'm just saying you could easily stick James in centre back with Tosin and then move Cole.
With that being said, though, if you guys are considering Chelsea defenders, I wouldn't say. I'd say I'd stop by Sanchez. I wouldn't go that far to go Chelsea defenders, especially against Liverpool. However, speaking of Liverpool, I know I'm jumping around a bit, but the most expensive midfielder is not getting points. What's happening?
Well, I think Mohamed Salah's tired, and I think he's ready to retire from football the way he's going. I think he looks second best. He looks like he's not really hit the same intensity as he has in previous seasons. He seems to take a long time to recover from like his travels, and he's going again. I just don't think he's really worth the price anymore. The problem is that he's still Mr. Consistent because who knows who's going to get benched. I know Salah's not getting benched. That's the only thing he has going for him. Dias.
There we go.
And he scored so that was Palace versus Liverpool, the early lunchtime kickoff. Just by the way, Liverpool have had the most lunchtime games of all the teams in the Premier League since like 2013 or something. And Palace and Liverpool ended with a 1-0 to Liverpool, and Jota scoring that goal. So those were the Jota. Jota and Dias just taking turns.
Yeah, it seems like we did say. I mean, if you watched our short on YouTube, it was a segment on lunchtime kickoffs to throw up different results. And I mean, Liverpool struggled. Salah struggled. Diaz was benched. So, I mean, that's as random as you're going to get. But that being said,
struggled in attack, but defensively, they still remain very strong. And clean sheets win titles.
Trent's still returning for me, which is the only reason why I haven't moved off him yet.
I think if we're looking, but they have tough fixtures coming up.
From that game week, would you say it's the time to take Salah out for a bit?
I think realistically, yes. I think if Salah's going to be blanking just as much as Dias is going to be rested on the bench, then there's no difference between them besides like 5 million.
Yeah, and then you net
so you might as well
bring in Haaland or Palmer, whatever.
Yeah, you bring Palmer, bring in Saka. I think Saka's way more consistent, and he's going to start, and he seems to be involved in every goal. Let's take us to Arsenal then. Arsenal versus Southampton. I know we both kept an eye on that game. You with your captain, me with my strange decision to bring in Martinelli and Trossard. That was Arsenal 3, Southampton 1. Goals from Havertz, Martinelli, and Saka in the second half, with Archer early in the second half scoring one.
That Saka goal really made me celebrate like I was an Arsenal fan because I was happy.
Disgusting.
He got his 2 assists. Yeah. He got his 2 assists and I was like, cool. This was before we knew like the results of Manchester City and all that. So Well, it was during actually. So I was like, okay, great, cool. I'm happy. I made the right choice. And then he got the goal, and I was like, okay, sweet. This was definitely the right choice because Haaland blanked. We'll get to that later. And obviously Salah blanked, the most obvious two captain picks other than Saka. Um, and I mean, it paid off thanks to you to keep me calm because last week I was a bit of a fit about it, saying, "No, I made the mistake because Salah is going to get a goal and blah blah blah." But I stuck to the plan, took your word on it, to just remain calm, and it paid off. So, if anything,
I,
just stick to your plan. Come
I
up with
think
good
at
wins.
the end of the day, if you are thinking about these matches in advance, think about this: Southampton have one of the worst defensive records so far in the Premier League.
Mm.
Fulham have some of the best defensive. So, like, if you were going to decide between you should captain Haaland or Saka, I think statistically Saka was way better option looking at their opponents, right?
Yeah,
And I just noted for that match, it's good to see Tomiyasu start again. Sterling started as well, so they did do some rotation.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Martinelli was benched. Pain for you because you brought him in, but he
but he
scored
still
for you in
came
the
on and
end.
scored.
So yeah, but
He looks
interesting to
really
see.
good. He looks really good. He does look really good. I don't think I would keep him forever. I think Saka is still the main choice. But I'd still keep an eye on him. And I'm also looking at Archer as well because he had the celebration. I don't know if you saw his celebration when he scored and he was like,
Yeah,
he pulled
Archer,
back a bow and he shot.
because he's an
So it was
Archer.
pretty cool. I
Yeah,
like that. And Ramsdale was kind of like Ramsdale testimonial. He's in tears, clapping everything over.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was a. We can jump to Haaland right now since we were talking about
Yeah,
him
we might
because
as
in
well.
Fulham.
What I wanted to also touch on now that you mentioned Haaland is that obviously this game week or this blank game week, not blank game week, the international break leading up to game week 8, a lot of people are going to be playing their wild cards. A lot of people are going to be thinking about what chips to be playing. I just have this thought in my head quickly. For those of you that are thinking about triple captaining at some point, based on what we've just said about Southampton, if you want a triple captain, City have Southampton at home coming up and game week 9 at home, which would be a great time to look at a Haaland triple captain. Um, so something to consider because, like we've just witnessed, they have the worst goal record or defense record in the league. So
Yeah, Man City versus Fulham. There was 3-1 to Man City. Goals, a brace from Kovacic and
Chelsea, no.
Doku. Yeah, he scored like one or two bangers and long range shots, and he did the same, arriving just in the box and scoring. Doku finished off what could have easily been Arsenal taking a advantage of Man City slipping up, but Doku made it 3, and even though Muniz came back with a late goal to make it 2-3, it still showed City's dominance, even though they struggled. I think Foden works better as a left winger with Haaland because then he cuts in and he's either playing in Haaland or Haaland's playing in him. As a number 10, it seemed like Foden was trying to do too much of the damage himself rather than pull the
Can be
strings.
more
So
playmaker. Yeah.
he didn't really fulfill the KDB role. And I think that's a big hole in Man City. If Silva's not going to do it and Foden's not going to do it, and KDB's injured, then I think they do. And Rodri's not even there to push the game forward. I think this might be the City's weakness revealed with Rodri being out uh, of the game. And I would also keep an eye on Fulham because I think the scoreline doesn't do them justice. They kept City at bay a whole lot of that game. They looked really, really good. Adama Traore almost like took the game away from City with
Mm.
his speed and his pace. He turned. You guys will go check the clip. He turned Lewis like he nearly put him on the floor.
Yeah.
It was an
Yeah.
insane little attack he had there. The big game of the weekend in terms of goals, 8-goal thriller.
Oh my word! I am so annoyed that Mbuemo scored once. I honestly don't understand what happened, but everyone in that team scored. Like no one scored twice. Everyone had their chance. It was crazy.
Yeah, so for you that they missed the game, it was Brentford 5, Wolves 3. We had goals from Collins, Mbuemo penalty, Norgard, Pinnock, and Cavallo. And on the Wolves side, Cunha still in the goals with Larson adding one in as well in between. Now, I don't know about you, but how many more 1 minute goals can Wolves score? Because this is the third goal they scored in the first minute,
Was it like
basically.
Collins? Was it Collins that the defender?
Collins this time, yeah. This time
Amazing.
it was Collins, but Buemo's done it already
Well,
twice in the last two seasons.
Brentford's definitely showing that they don't need Ivan Toney. I'll tell you
No,
that
they do
much.
not.
And
Yeah.
Buemo number 9 makes me worry if Weiss is going to come back and maybe Weiss plays out wide. Who knows? Because Buemo looks comfortable in that number 9 position.
I think I think Brentford's big job is going to be how long are they going to be holding Mbuemo? He is a little older. I'd love to double check his age, but I know he looks a little older, and I don't think he's in the age range that clubs are going to be fighting for him. So Brentford might be lucky to keep him for the next 3 years, and he scores this amount of goals, he's going to keep them in the Premier League,
Well, he's
guaranteed.
25, actually.
Yeah, this is not bad.
He
Then
looks older than I thought. I thought he was 27. 25.
It's that beard.
It's probably worth a look to sell next season, to be honest, to cash out.
If they were going to move him on, now is the time.
Yeah.
At 25, he's the even Chelsea might be. I'm not saying we need him. I'm just saying Chelsea would be interested in a 25.
But a team like Chelsea, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
he's fire, and you know what, Arsenal wouldn't buy Ivan Toney. I know you and everybody else is in love with Havertz, but Arsenal could do with a number 9, I think.
And no, I agree. I like Havertz just because he scored us the Champions League winner, so he's got a special place in my heart. But I agree with you. They still need a number 9, and Havertz doesn't look like that poacher out and out number 9. So
it's good vibes, but he's good vibes enough to win the Premier League. We're going to find out. And just on Wolves there, I'd say Wolves and Alt-Nouri also scored right at the death of the game.
Yeah, I wanted to say Cunha also at the start very early as well, still scoring goals. So as an FPL player, it's worth looking at. The only problem is Wolves are not the greatest team to get points from. But yeah, worth monitoring.
I would say that I'm looking at Southampton and Wolves and going, whooping boys. They're in my whooping boys category. I just mean their defense is not looking good. So anytime I'm looking at those teams, I'm looking at some big defense. And let's jump to the next whooping boy of the Premier League right now, and that's Ipswich, because West Ham were able to score 4 goals to Ipswich's 1 goal. Antonio, Kudu, Bowen, and Paqueta on the score sheet with the lap up front for Ipswich.
I must say that fixture surprised me. I really wasn't expecting a West Ham 4-1 victory. Again, though, it is a newly promoted team, so I guess you could say West Ham have been a staple in the Premier League for a while. So could you have said you expected it? I suppose. Like you said,
it depends on the lineup.
On the score sheet, it was a shout to bring in scoring. So
the championship always sends up some really good strikers, and they really worth a lot of goals. But we'll wait to see whether they can establish themselves and they can hold on to a Premier League spot if he can settle himself in that team for a couple of seasons to go. But I think the big talking point from this match is, from my perspective, is Lopetegui. He did not start Antonio, and he did not start Souček against Chelsea. He tried his whole super speed, fancy footwork team, building his style of football. It did not work because you don't understand when you're playing against Chelsea. This is a few weeks ago. You're playing against Chelsea in a London derby. That is about more than just the football. There's rivalry. There's London derby. There's energy. There's intensity. There's literally there's a lot of fire there. And Antonio and Souček are those types of players. Yes, they might not fit the philosophy of fast, fluid, creative, fancy footwork, but they will die for the badge.
Yeah.
And I think he's realized that. And look what happens when you start the two of them. First minute, another minute goal, and Kudus is so strong. Last question before: do you think West Ham regrets the treatment of David Moyes? Took them to a European trophy, kept them in the upper echelons of the table.
Yeah, I would.
Playing unattractive
what's
football.
The difference? What's this? West Ham's been horrible this season.
Yeah.
So fire this management, by the logic of West Ham. So yeah. I agree. David Moyes wasn't really treated the best. But
speaking about David Moyes, who is not a manager right now and needs a team, there's a team that's
might need a manager.
Knocking on some. There's a team that's knocking on some doors, and that's Manchester United, who played away to Aston Villa in a little bit of a dry 0-0 draw. This game was labeled as Ten Hag's last dance, the game that he gets sacked if he loses, and he didn't manage to lose, so it seems to have kept himself in a job. I haven't heard any news. They are doing really bad. However, I had a bit of a rant this morning on a couple of points about why Ten Hag's tenure is not as bad as we think. The first thing I brought up is the fact that they have got 2 trophies, which Ten Hag himself has brought up. Now, you might think 2 trophies, an FA Cup and a League Cup, what a big deal that is. Well, I can tell you now, Spurs would bite off your hand, your arm, your foot, your Harry Kane for a trophy or 2.
Arsenal hasn't won it yet.
Arsenal have no trophies in the last 3 years. Last time they won a trophy was Mikel Arteta's first season against Frank Lampard in the final of the FA Cup. After that, no trophies. Newcastle and Aston Villa, biggest achievements, making top 4, no trophies.
Even West Ham won Europa League.
Yes. All I have to say about this is that Ten Hag, yes, I understand it's not the biggest trophies. They're not playing attractive football. They don't have a style. There's lots of bad things about United. But technically, United are more successful than Chelsea in the last 2 years, winning 2 trophies. And trophies are success. You can't argue with a trophy. You can argue style of football. You can argue unattractiveness. You can argue bad times and bad vibes. You can argue Champions League revenue. But you can't argue with a trophy in the cabinet.
No.
So if you, and I ask all my United friends out there, if Ten Hag stays this season, finishes 8th, but wins another trophy, right, and becomes the most successful Man United manager since Sir Alex Ferguson, winning 3 trophies, but he still finishes out the top 4, is he not a success?
You know, and the speculation, and no, this is true. This is a good point that you raised, because a lot of people don't think about this, because how you made me realize this earlier when I asked the question, when you asked me the question, how do you measure success? How do you measure success in football? With silverware, with trophies. So what if you finished 5th? So what if you finished 6th, 7th, 8th? You won the FA Cup. Okay. You won the Carabao Cup. Okay. Well, that's fine. Like, so I like what you said. I think
we do want to see United. We do want to see, if you're a United supporter, you do want to see your team moving forward, and that's the problem. They don't seem to be moving forward, but they still seem to be achieving success, and that success is under Ten Hag. And I can tell you, there's many coaches. There's 20 coaches in the league that would take those trophies, right, over the last couple of seasons. Outside of Manchester City, Liverpool would like another trophy.
As a Chelsea, I would have taken the trophy over Conference League, no problem. I would have loved it.
So take those trophies and maybe think about what is it you can actually do, United can do to actually get Ten Hag what he needs. I know he's taken 3 years this far, but if he wins another trophy this season, I think it's still justified. And he still buys himself some time. Trophies buy you time. Unless you're buying yourself time to get yourself relegated. Trophies still buy you time. So I'd love to see him stay, but who knows? You could be listening to this and be a week later into the international break and Ten Hag sacked and Thomas Tuchel's been hired, or who knows? Maybe David
United needed a Chelsea manager before to try and get them out of the little pit that they were in, Jose Mourinho, and they might need one again, Thomas Tuchel. So you're welcome, United.
And sidebar on a more successful team over the last 2 years, Aston Villa. Again, no trophies to show for, but looking really good, beating Bayern in the Champions League. Looking really strong. Rodgers is such a good player. I don't know how long they're going to keep him if they don't actually do something with him. Like, he's really, really good. Emery seems to be a brilliant coach.
What if City sign Rodgers in January and play him with Haaland?
Hey? Yeah, City can't do it. City must first work on their trials. They must first get out of the court.
They need him at number 10 because clearly Foden ain't it. So who knows? But anyway.
So I know that game had no goals, but it still brought up a lot of interest in terms of Ten Hag and United. And speaking of drab 0-0 draws, and let's jump to Everton and Newcastle, which also ended goalless. But again, some intense saves from Pickford. He got a penalty save.
Yeah. Man, what is it, like 15 points or something that he ended up getting this week? Something crazy, because penalty saves are ridiculous. But yeah, not many blank game weeks. Not many blank scoring game weeks that we've had. And I mean, we've just had 2. So the defense of Everton loving it. The people that brought Everton defense and Pickford in. But yes, the fact that Everton kept a clean sheet really makes me consider moving to Pickford again, just because Pickford's just good.
I keep an eye on them, but they do look like maybe Sean Dyche turning a corner. But let's 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, because they started choking. But they, just for interest's sake, they have a fantastic run of fixtures coming up. They've got Ipswich, Fulham, Southampton, West Ham, Brentford, and then United and Wolves. So those of you that are thinking of wildcarding, might be worth to rotate to him. He's currently sitting at 4.8, so a little bit more expensive than normal. Than your other.
Even in an attacking sense, I'm looking at McNeil.
Yeah, McNeil
at 5.5, 5.6.
But scored 2 last week against Palace at home. Blanked,
2 15 goals.
Scored assist at Villa away. So yeah, him or Delap. Personally, for me, I'm looking at, because Pedro is injured, and I don't know if Pedro gets his spot back because Welbeck is just a machine. Speaking of
Yeah.
Welbeck, just a quick one. We have to touch on the Brentford game. The Brighton game, sorry. The
Brighton
game.
versus Spurs, 3-2,
We thought
3 goals to
Spurs was
Brighton,
winning.
Spurs
2-0.
2. They won 2-0, and they did the most Spursy thing you can do, which is lose
So
from a
it's
winning
proof that
position.
it's not Harry Kane. Is that what we're saying? It wasn't Harry Kane. It was just Tottenham.
I don't know, it's just
Sorry,
Spurs
man.
in general. There was Minter and Ritter and Welbeck scored those second half goals, but Johnson and Madison looked great. Spurs played their first half. They took their chances. They did the thing. I think they just didn't take more of their chances, but they just couldn't hold on to their lead. It was very, very lackluster, to choose a nice word, to not upset Spurs fans out there. I don't know how you guys are feeling. I mean, I would be gutted if my team
Yeah.
lost a 2-0 lead to 3-2 against a Brighton team that defensively are ridiculous. They both play a high line. Like they both didn't have defenders, and they
Yeah.
both just attacked each other. It was
Yeah.
insane.
I mean, look, if you're a Spurs fan right now, you're not happy. I need to ask the Spurs fans that I know, I need to suss their vibe. But I mean, they're sitting ninth going into the international break, just losing a game. This is why I say to you guys and say to the Chelsea people out there that I might be a bit annoyed with the result. It's not the worst thing. United drew against Villa. Spurs lost a lead against Brighton. United drawing keeps us ahead of Villa in the top 4 going into the break. Yes, we should have won, but we're not in the worst of spots.
I still think it's frustrating for Spurs because they come off a win against United. All they need to do is hold on and actually defend. So football is a game of two types. You got defense and you got attack. You can't just all out attack. If you're going to all out attack, go score 4 or 5 goals then. Because that's going to be your defense, is outscoring your opponents. And you went against Brighton, who are one of the most deadliest attacking teams, who themselves have no defense. So Spurs really needed to show a little bit of grit, and they just couldn't. And I think that, again, he's another manager that's under the pressure. And if he doesn't, in this season, win a trophy finally for Spurs, Ange Postecoglou and his attacking brand of football is not really going to go anywhere.
Maybe Ten Hag must go to Spurs and actually win them something.
And I just keep an eye on Madison. Looks really, really good.
Yeah, scored in that game as well.
Johnson. I know we played a game of FIFA last week, and Johnson was scoring us some goals.
He was,
and he's fast. He's one of those players coming out through the Spurs.
He's what
ranks.
Mudryk
Good.
should have been, to be honest. He's quick. He's good on the ball. He scores goals. He doesn't lack in product. So, yeah.
Yeah. Last game that we have on our list of games for the weekend wasn't a big result, but it did swing in Leicester's way. I think Vardy did get the assist there, if I'm correct, but it was 1-0 to Leicester with Bournemouth sitting nowhere, dropping a little bit inconsistent.
For those budget picks that had Harry Winks, he wasn't played. He didn't start, I should say. Same with Smith Rowe, funnily enough. Also didn't start for Fulham. Don't know what their thoughts were behind that. Maybe just resting. Semenyo also proving to be a good pick so far. Not getting a haul, but involved in a lot of chances. Still a good price as well. He might be in that same Rodgers category where cheap but not really hauling, but has the threat. So
Leicester Bournemouth is like the opposite of Brighton Spurs. It's a little boring, a little dry. Lots of missed opportunities, just could not. It looked like a championship game, which it shouldn't, because Leicester's pedigree and Bournemouth have been here for a while. But we'll see what happens to those teams in the future. But that's been our wrap-up of the week.
There we go.
I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Let us know if you guys liked it. It was just a bit of a review thing, different. We'll be back next week after the international break with Game Week 8, Episode 8. So don't forget to tune in. Leave a like down below, comment down below. We'll see you next week.